I hope these guys are able to come back healthy. I think Gary Payton the second would be an amazing addition for the Warriors if he's able to come back and then provide anything for them and play like he's relatively healthy, just to give them another defender that they can put on a guy like Marcus Smart or Jayson Tatum or even Derek White, which is why I think the matchup from Golden State's defensive side is interesting because nobody's going to say that like Steph Curry is a lockdown defender, although he's been really good in these playoffs actually. But if you're going to put him, you can't necessarily like hide him on defense, right? So you're probably going to end up putting him on Marcus Smart because he's not going to be, like as aggressive as Jayson Tatum or something, but he just might be. Like one thing Marcus Smart isn't, shy to do is shoot the ball. In their Game 7 win against the Heat, he took the most shots out of any of the Celtics players. So if you put Steph on him, you know that he's probably he's going to have the strength advantage, and he's probably going to try and take him to the rack. He's probably going to try and shoot. So these guys are going to have to work on defense. So whether you're throwing Draymond or Wiggins on Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I'm sure Clay is going to get some of that action as well. It's, who's going to guard who? They have Robert Williams still to deal with. They have Al Horford who can stretch the floor. And even, again, a guy like Derek White coming in who isn't always aggressive, but when he is, he's pretty good. So I'm going to be interested to see how this series comes down to Golden State's defense, and especially what they do with Jordan Poole, because I don't know who you're going to have Poole guard, because like I said, I think both of the Celtics' main guards, being Derek White and Marcus Smart, are aggressive enough to expose Jordan Poole a little bit. And I don't know that the Celtics are going to, be playing like Peyton Pritchard all that much, where then you can just throw Jordan Poole in and say, okay, go guard him because we know he's not about to do anything. So for Poole, I think he'll be obviously one of the X factors for the Warriors. And it's just going to be, how much do they trust him to play? They obviously trust his offense, but if he's going to be exposed like that on defense, how bad is it going to be? Is it even going to happen? Because the Celtics might just end up missing their shots, and then maybe the Warriors can escape with a game or two. They're certainly better at home than they are on the road, although they've only lost 4 games total in the playoffs, but 9-0 at home in the playoffs. So for the Warriors, it's just interesting to me like how they're going to deal with the Celtics, being that they do have some aggressive guards, a lot like Memphis did, obviously, with Ja and Desmond Bane, although Ja wasn't there for all the games. So it ended up being a little bit different. And I'm just interested to see how that's going to happen, how they're going to be able to deal with the size that the Celtics can bring inside, whether it's Al Horford, Robert Williams, or even Jayson Tatum.
Defensively, Marcus Smart on Steph Curry is a huge boost for the Celtics. At least it has been in the past. It's a little different story when you have to deal with this back-to-back games and you're trying to win, 4 out of 7. Is Steph going to run Marcus Smart into the ground offensively, where Marcus Smart's not going to be nearly as effective on his offense if he's so exhausted from trying to follow Steph Curry everywhere? I don't think Marcus Smart is going to stay on Steph Curry the whole time. They're going to pick their spots when it comes to him. Marcus Smart is big enough to be guarding Clay, who doesn't move like Steph Curry does, to guard Wiggins at times when Wiggins decides he doesn't want to, be aggressive and take it to the rack. So there's different ways you can use Marcus Smart. Obviously, Tatum and Brown bring their defensive capabilities. Robert Williams, his health really plays a factor. If he's good to go, that's a huge boost for the Celtics. If his knee and his bone bruise are still really bothering him, he's not nearly as effective defensively, and he's only going to play about 12 minutes a game, so you don't have to worry as much. And then obviously we've looked on the Dubs side of things defensively. A whole lot of questions on if Iguodala, Gary Payton, and Otto Porter Jr. are even going to play in this series. And then Jordan Poole, huge defensive liability. Probably the worst defender in this series is Jordan Poole. Andrew Wiggins just got done taking as much of the responsibility as anybody for shutting down Luka Doncic. Well, Jayson Tatum is a different player than Luka Doncic, and so it's going to be interesting to see how Wiggins is involved in that matchup, how Draymond Green's involved in that matchup, going back and forth between Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, and then having to deal with Al Horford as well. If they're going to go small and Draymond's your 5, the Dubs are going to have to figure something out. They figured it out with Doncic whenever Steph was involved. They'd let Steph kind of leak towards Luka to kind of slow him down so that his main defender could get back involved in the play and then run back out to guard the three-point shooter that Luka's, most likely going to pass to if he doesn't get his own shot. You might have to deal with the same thing with Steph in this situation, where if it's Tatum or Brown in that same situation, he's going to have to do the same thing. There's so many questions. It's such an unknown in this finals, and I love it personally as a basketball fan to not be able to come into this finals and say this team is going to win.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what? Yeah.